What's it like having autism and ADHD? Well, it's something I've been giving a lot of consideration to since I got a diagnosis for both of them. The common term amongst the community is AuDHD, which is a combination of autism and ADHD. However, that's not an official diagnostic term. They're just considered comorbidities or co-occurring conditions right now. And I would assume that we didn't call it AuDD because then you would just be odd. But I digress. My name's Heather. I'm 46 years old. I was recently diagnosed with both autism and ADHD, and I have been dissecting my diagnosis and my behaviors for quite some time now. And this is a channel where I make videos about that and about the commonalities of both of these diagnoses. And I appreciate you joining me for this little delving into AuDHD. So what does it feel like to have both autism and ADHD? The best way I can describe it is I could put on a one-man show of Neil Simon's The Odd Couple. And if you don't relate to that because the reference is too old or you're too young, let's just say I'm both Bert and Ernie all at the same time. I am the curmudgeonly old man that yells at the kids to get off of his lawn. And I'm also the kid that keeps coming on his damn lawn. Sometimes I feel like the two things have helped to balance me out over the years. Like, autism is the friendly parent or caregiver that's like, maybe we shouldn't do that, without researching it for 100 days first and making sure we know everything about it. And it could cause us a risk or it could take us out of our routine. But then on the other side, I have the ADHD that's like, no, do it now. Dopamine, give it to me now. So sometimes it's a battle, but sometimes one steps in to help out. And of course, both of these look different in women than they do in men. And the combination diagnosis makes it really hard to determine a lot of things that don't seem applicable to you when you're listening to videos about autism or ADHD. Because if you have both, it really is a totally different animal. And until recently, you couldn't have both. Until the 2013 version of the DSM-5 came out, you could not diagnose both of these disorders at one time. So there's not a lot of information on it, and there's not a lot of stories from people that have both, and that's the reason why I try to give information on both of my diagnoses, most of the time separately, to help people understand that sometimes it just does show up in a different way. Honestly, I've always felt like an old person, even when I wasn't an old person, and I think that was the autism. But then there's also been this huge drive to just do things and get out and experience life and have all of these great, magnificent experiences. And I think that's the ADHD. So while the ADHD pulls me out of my shell, the autism kind of keeps me grounded. While my ADHD wants to go on an impromptu road trip, my autism's like, let's plot out the entire plan first, make sure we have bathroom stops planned in. Did we bring something for lunch? Do we have enough money for this trip? So sometimes one pulls the other out of the fire. And they're starting to realize that the correlation of those diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder that also have ADHD is a very high and previously misunderstood dynamic, very high comorbidity, co-occurrence of the two. And just my personal opinion is it goes undiagnosed in so many of us, and it does go diagnosed as bipolar because you are kind of swinging from one extreme version to the other. You have both. You have both the need to seek the dopamine and the routine. You thrive in chaos, but you've got to have that set routine to function properly. So honestly, a lot of times it doesn't tick the boxes for just ADHD or just autism. And if you'd like to see videos about my particular autism diagnosis process, I'll link those down below. Above all, I think it's important that we understand, while this is an emerging sector and an emerging diagnosis over the past decade, that everyone presents individually. Everybody on the spectrum is different. Your skill sets, your profile is going to appear differently no matter what your actual diagnosis is. And there's no wrong way to do either of these things. There's no wrong way to be ADHD or to be autistic or to be both. So if you enjoyed this brief video, I appreciate you liking, subscribing, and don't forget to tap that little notification bell so that you know when more videos come out. I'd love to do a deeper dive into this, and I appreciate your comments on whether or not you've considered if you have this dual diagnosis. As always, thank you for watching. Love you, bye.